A simple solution to the Internet age. The Internet poses many problems related to information. One emergent problem that deserves a diagnosis is the inability for society to agree on what is true. Here's my best shot at a diagnosis. Tech giants like Google and Facebook are competing with each other for your attention. The more attention they receive, the better it is for their advertisement-oriented business model. Because there is no governing body that limits such attention mining, and such a body is extremely difficult to institute, these companies will employ whatever means necessary to addict you to their service. Now, you may regard this as a pessimistic outlook. Won't it all work out as these companies see the error of their ways and the ethical implications of metaphorically ensnaring the entire world? Not necessarily. The ethical implications aren't as cut and dry as it would seem. Such tech giants at once have an ethical obligation to their user base and an obligation to their employees and shareholders. To self-impose a restriction on attention mining means to deprive investors and employees of shareholder value and a stable livelihood, respectively. Because if one tech giant restricts themselves and not the others, then the others will prevail and potentially drive the former to extinction. Hence the ethical dilemma. So we've established that, absent some governing body, tech giants have an overwhelming economic incentive to addict you to their services and no moral disincentive. How does this have to do with the inability for society to agree on what is true? Well, each of these services, Facebook, Google, etc., extracts as much data from you, the user, as possible in order to feed this data to an algorithm that recommends to you only the content most likely to capture your attention. If you like watching videos on YouTube, for example, every interaction with the YouTube interface, whether you search for something, click on a video, like a video, comment, etc., is cataloged and used to recommend new and individualized content. Say you recently binged on a couple hundred cat videos. Your home screen would come to be populated by novel cat videos in the genre you previously explored, like if you had a yarn kitten fixation. Harmless, right? In this case, maybe, besides all the time you will have wasted on cat videos. But say you use YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or any other social media site for your political information. Because these sites are engineered to display only the content most likely to capture your attention, you will only be shown content that confirms your political bias. Not only that, but of the content that confirms your political bias, you're likely to be shown the most polarizing, sensational, conspiratorial, us-them dichotomizing media. Remember that, in addition, each feed is individualized, so what you see is not what anyone else sees. For these reasons, I would go so far as to say that the more informed of politics you become through these sites, the less informed you actually are, since information that disconfirms is never presented. It's easy to realize, then, that societal convergence on facts is impossible when each of us is exposed to disparate, highly polarizing information streams. What is the solution? Well, here's what I propose. Google should use its user-generated data to create a separate search engine that sorts results based on oldness and current viewership. The underlying premise being that the older and more currently relevant an idea is, the less stupid it's likely to be. The prioritization of a search result should increase linearly with current viewership and oldness, and be adjusted as necessary. E.g., prioritization may have to increase logarithmically with current viewership because new content receives much more attention than old content. Additionally, this new search engine should only receive data from outside itself, so that prioritization of a search result remains unaffected by the viewership the search results receives within the new search engine itself. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I see many advantages to this approach. 1. Automated filtration of information is less likely to be perceived as biased. One implicit problem with achieving social cohesion is that people have a natural tendency to discount what the other thinks, especially if it contradicts their worldview. Automated filtration would remove this temptation and force everyone to face the facts. Another problem is that big tech feels it's incumbent on them to censor what it deems to be misinformation or hate speech. Such censorship generates its own set of problems. Firstly, and most importantly, censorship is a slippery slope that admits of insidious pervasion. For example, full-on government censorship, e.g., North Korea, is a gradual process that begins with the acceptance of harmless things here and there and ends with the rewriting of history and the enslavement of a naive citizenry. Secondly, such censorship biases toward the censoring body. Big tech has an obvious liberal bias, for example, and their censorship reflects that bias. Thirdly, misinformation is occasionally misidentified to a potentially detrimental effect. Only the test of time is an unbiased and noise-free determination of the value of an idea. 2. Everyone knows how results are filtered, and what you see is what everyone else sees. If these conditions are met, internet literate people no longer have to doubt everything they're fed online, and everyone can begin to trust in the non-pollution of their information. 3. Age and relevancy are better, more consistent determinants of the value of an idea than almost anything else. One of my pastimes has been watching political debates, and it always struck me as salient that two equally smart, well-informed people from across the political divide can have radically different opinions in good faith on what the facts are. One wonders whether discernment of fact from fiction is entirely possible by human reason alone, if such individuals can disagree on the facts. If, however, we instead allowed the oldest idea that's still relevant to be the deciding factor of a political disagreement, we wouldn't have this problem. Of course, this entails that, through science or otherwise, society perpetually tries to disprove its body of ideas, otherwise necessary progress won't occur. This begs the question, however, why are relevant old ideas better in general than relevant new ideas? It's because of the quasi-Darwinian selection process that ideas go through. If an old idea is still relevant, that means it's successfully avoided being disproven for longer than its newer counterpart, that it's survived. Thus, old extant ideas are more robust. Conclusion. Big tech faces a serious dilemma. On the one hand, it's largely responsible for the toxic tribalism that characterizes our public discourse. On the other hand, its attempts to police dissemination of information are no longer tenable, because any attempt to do so is biased and infringes on free speech. On the third hand, it's not as if big tech can simply commit seppuku and shut everything down, because shareholders and employees are dependent on its survival. Therefore, what we need is a search engine, as outlined above, that allows everyone to receive similar, unbiased, mostly good information. Note that mostly good is as good as possible because perfect filtration of information does not exist. Google, please feel free to steal this idea. I lack the programming skills necessary to enact it. It would be nice to get some recognition though.